Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sigma Swag Podcast. I'm Joe. This is our first guest. This is Houston.
Hello.
And obviously, this is my brother John. We are going to be doing our first interview today, talking about kind of where Houston has came from, how he's made so much good progress in his life, how a lot of the principles that we've been talking about here in the last several episodes he's been using in his life, and how he's been growing and doing so much better than what he was. He's grown by leaps and bounds, and we're so proud of him. I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Houston and let him introduce himself and tell a little about his background.
And a lot of it is thanks to Joe and John both. So my name is Houston Gammons. I started out, didn't have the greatest upbringing in life. It wasn't terrible, but, it wasn't the greatest by a long shot. I grew up in a broken home. My mom and dad didn't ever see, truly eye to eye. They both remarried and, they're living their lives. I actually started working with Joe when I was 18. He was my supervisor outside at a metal facility that we worked at. I was very scared. I was very easily manipulated, I should say. I didn't really know. I had all the right tools to be okay in society, but I didn't really know, how to use them. Joe gave me a lot of new ways to deal with people in the real world. I've been through 4 types of different schooling systems. I did public school. I've been homeschooled. I did charter school, and I actually ended up finishing with my GED and going to college. So, Joe and John have helped me a lot with my internal growth and external growth.
That's awesome. So I know that, we'll just kind of living room talk here today. So
Okay.
I know that when I first met you, when I first met Houston, obviously we were, he had come in through the temp agency, and at the job I do, we do wire mesh. It goes in all the concrete for the big construction projects all across the country. And I saw this big, like, lovable, goofy kid, and I was like, that's a good one right there. There's
a teddy
something
bear.
about him. Yeah. I was like, I like this one. So the way it happened, he was actually on somebody else's crew, and then my crew ended up having an opening, and I handpicked him.
Pretty much.
And as we were working together, I was noticing that, he was, none of this is to degrade your knock you,
you're fine.
He was very sensitive about certain things. He was kind of skittish. He, it was different interacting with him in some things.
I just wanted to fight everybody instead of talk and use my words.
Yeah, he was ready to fight at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you think that I helped you start coming through that, like.
Well, so I was in a place in my mind where I needed a good job. I lived 45 minutes away from anything that really, was good enough money. I mean, granted, I was still living with my mom. I'd moved from my dad's for reasons, and it just I didn't know how to deal with people in society. I didn't know how mean people could be because I was very sheltered as a child. I was also a very rowdy and rambunctious kid. But I think what you helped me the most with was just being able to take criticism and just be okay. Just not care. Just not care how, granted, my small inner circle of people, I care. But as far as, like, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't give a damn what you thought about me. And why do I care? You're just somebody that's probably just as miserable, if not more miserable, than I am in my life. So what does it matter?
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So honestly, I was, through my experiences growing up and in the military, I learned that like cures like. He was very sensitive to criticism. He was, joking, teasing, all these things. So I started just hammering him. I would
quite literally hammering me.
I would criticize him. I would get on his case. I was torturing him quite literally. And
there was lots of wrestling matches and screaming matches and
lots of yelling and screaming, lots of just calling names and telling him things, really purposely stressing him out. And a lot of people would look at it and they'd be like, "Why are you so horrible to that boy?" And I would explain, I was like, "This is all done on purpose. Just you watching. In a short amount of time, relatively speaking, he's gonna begin to develop and push through this, and he's gonna be better off.
He's gonna become a man."
Yeah.
Well, it genuinely got to the point where we had a Gatorade bottle explode for a certain situation, and I was literally going to come back and I was really going to hurt him. I was going to choke him. I was going to shoot him. I was going to beat him. I was going to do something. And again, I was in a situation where I had to have the money, so I couldn't just leave. I had to come back to work. And then how did it end? We backed a certain other employee up against the corner pretty much and made him cry like a little bitch. So
Yep. Houston learned a lot. He progressed so well through all that, and I mean his work ethic, his the way he was living his own personal life. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you were going through there at the time, things you were doing, what you were into.
So when I originally started working with Joe, so again so I lived with my father from the time I was 5 till I was about 18 when I moved out. And I never really got to do a whole lot. I never got to go experience a lot of things. I did a lot of, like that young and dumb. I mean, I flipped a four-wheeler when I was a kid and tried to lie about it. I used to steal liquor from my dad's liquor row in the refrigerator and fill it back up with water because, I thought that would work. But I didn't really get to experience a lot until I moved in with my mom. And, I was 18 by then, and my mom was just one of those people where I was just going to have to learn on my own. I'm a very hard-headed person, Joe will tell you. And so I started doing a lot of partying, a lot of drinking. And with drinking, I would smoke weed. I smoked weed a lot. And then I actually ended up getting addicted to cocaine for about a year and a half before I peeled almost all the paint off of the wall. But it was a really, really hard situation because I was bouncing around from friends' couch to couch. I didn't want to go home because I didn't want my mom to see me in that situation. I didn't want my siblings to see me in that type of, demeanor. And I genuinely went up to Joe and I was like, "Look, Joe, I need you to help me to stop because I can't keep doing this no more." And we made a little pact of our own.
Yes, we did.
And every time Joe found out that I smoked or snorted cocaine, I would get smacked in the balls viciously. So that's true.
Works.
And every time I'd accidentally tell on myself, or I'd be talking to somebody else that worked with us, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I was at so and so's house last night, and we was smoking a doobie," and Joe'd walk up behind me and just walk away. That's just leave me laying on the ground and just walk away. And I got tired of getting my balls knocked. So
sometimes that's what it takes. I mean, he wouldn't realize that I was listening. I can hear. I got good ears. He would just be sitting there, being rowdy, talking trash to whoever. Next thing you know, I'm like, "Hey, buddy, what'd you say you did?"
It was so bad, and genuinely, the one of the biggest reasons why. So I grew up. I have 5 siblings in total. 1 with my father and 4 with my mom, and I have a brother who has a form of autism, and I never truly understood how to deal with it. And in my time of doing drugs and being strung out on stuff, which I wouldn't even really say strung out, I was just beginning to be, but. I ended up putting a pillow over top of his chest and beating his chest, and that was like one of the really big turning points because I didn't really want to hurt somebody that I cared so much about, and it's a very scary, scary situation to be in.
Yeah, being, doing those types of drugs and things, and then on top of not understanding, what somebody else is going through, it really puts you in a weird place.
Well, and Joe will tell you, in my partying phase, there was many a times I would come back to work on Monday with busted up knuckles and stories of how we've gotten drunk and I busted this guy in the head with a beer bottle and I fought these 3 guys at the same time. And I was running around with, they weren't necessarily a bad group of kids. They just had been experiencing that stuff long before I did, and I just kind of went nuts when I got the opportunity to. And I've always been a bigger guy. You know, I'm 6'5", so I've always felt like I was hung over people, and so I don't know. I felt like I had something to prove, and I don't feel like I have to prove that to anybody anymore.
That was one of the coolest ways that I watched you change because you went from always feeling like you had to prove you were the dominant one, prove that you were prove anything really.
Prove yourself.
It really did.
He went from that point to the point where he just said, you know, he doesn't care what somebody thinks of him. He doesn't care, you know, what you say, he just doesn't care. That doesn't matter because he's secure in himself now that he's grown and experienced all this stuff. He doesn't need to feel insecure. He doesn't need to feel like he's got anything to prove.
Well, and I have a lot more. I mean, and granted, some people who may be watching this may be husbands or wives and have kids, and you know, I'm 24, so you might be a lot older than I am, but I feel like I have more on my plate now. Like I want to go back to school. I want to, you know, granted, I'm in a very good situation in my life, which we'll talk about here in a little while, but I'm a lot like John, and I always want to do and be better and to push to the next step, and to always try to find different ways to just grow and evolve. I would love to try to be either to go back to school to finish my welding degree, or to go be a lineman, or to do something with business, or you know, just anything and everything to make myself better. I don't know. I want to be better than my predecessors, I guess you could say.
Better than you were previously.
Yeah.
Your former self.
You're not looking at any specific person as your competition.
No.
Your only competition that you're wanting to be is your own self.
Right.
Yep. That's awesome.
How do you think working with John helped you?
Cause John is a completely different being than you are when it comes to being a person. John and this is not in any way, shape, or form to bash either one of you, because you both have your strongs and you both have your weaknesses, but you seem to take things a little more personally than John does. John's he's just straight just about business. That's what it is for John. It's not so much of, you know, he was the growing aspect. I had the growing aspect with you. Now when it comes to John, I needed to be about business. Like that was, we came to work, we worked. If I wanted overtime, I had to work to get the overtime. It wasn't something that was just given to me. I had to earn it. So it made me look at things as more of, I guess you could say, a man would look at things. You know, not everything's handed to you. And I think a lot of my generation is a bunch of pussyfooters who don't know how to handle what it is to be an adult. I think a lot of times back to when I would be able to go in early, and me and John would literally be cutting the lights on so I could start running.
Yep.
And a lot of that has helped me where, you know, at my job now, I started, our clock-in time is 7 o'clock at night. We work till 7. Well, just for instance, this past Wednesday or Thursday, we had a gentleman get called out for a personal reason, and another gentleman that was leaving halfway through the shift because his wife was getting induced into labor. So that just left me. So I showed up at work at 5:30 to get ready for everything that had to be done without being paid for it, just so that I could set myself up to finish my job the best I could by myself. That was a lot of what John taught me.
So it sounds like you were given a twofold system, you can call it, where you got your foundation and grounding from him.
Right.
And then you came over to work for me, and it was time to then apply it.
Right.
That's awesome, yeah.
And, you know, because initially, you know, you were a terrible worker.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
It was
bad.
He could not follow instructions. He was definitely not a self-starter. You had to sit on him and make sure he did it. There's so many times when I was like, Houston, did you do this? And be like,
as me and Joe used to call it, was the Paul effect.
Yeah. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, but anyways.
And you know, that was one of the things that I had to really work out of you. And it didn't take just me. It took you going and working with John. It took you working at that other company before the one that you're at now for things to really like hit bottom and hit home with you, and then you started to see where we had been pointing you the whole time, and then you started figuring it out, and that's when you really started taking off.
And this isn't not to discredit if any of my family members are to see this. This isn't to discredit anything that I was shown previously before meeting these two. This was just when I officially evolved myself into who I am now. Because I have a grandfather who's an ex-Marine, and he's going through a lot right now. But that is one of the biggest people who have ever taught me to, a man goes to work every day. A man comes home, he works every day. If you want a rock wall built in your backyard, which we did over the summer one year, I'm not going to pay somebody to do that. We're men. We're going to do it on our own. Hard work pays off. You work to get here, and then you enjoy it when you get here. You don't have to sit back and watch, soap operas and eat bonbons and ho-hos and something magically happen. You have to get out there and do it. Just like my dad. Granted, we didn't always have, the greatest relationship, but my dad always made sure that there was food on the table and we had warm beds to sleep in. And, even when things happened with the company he worked for and it went south real bad, he drove all the way to Georgia every Sunday, worked in Georgia on Friday, drove home Friday night, was with us Saturday, and then drove right back home on Sunday.
Yeah, that's being a man, handling your business, doing what you got to do.
Exactly.
And that's what it takes. And that's what, in one of the previous episodes, most recently we covered stuff like that. Life isn't going to just give you what you want. You have to push through, because it's definitely, when you start going after what you want, it's going to push back on you, and you just have got to drive through it.
You know what I like about Houston's story, though, is that he was in this situation and he chose the choice, because we all have a choice. He chose to learn from it, even though it might have been harder lessons than others in certain areas, but he still ultimately made the choice to learn from it and grow, and then bring that with him and those lessons onto the next opportunity, and he kept that going. So regardless of where he started and what he once was, he took that everything that he learned and brought it with him and made the conscious choice to do better and progress, which is super, super cool, and that's motivating as well.
Before I worked at the job I'm at now, what Joe was talking about a few minutes ago, I worked for a butcher place as a delivery guy and a packager, and it was a really pie job, and I made like $6 less than what I make now an hour, and it was something that I could quite literally, if I wanted to, I could have showed up high every day to work and did what I had to do and go home. But again, that's the whole, I wanted more. And, I started looking for other places. I had some signs there that I won't go into detail, but I had some gentlemen corner me and say a lot of bad things about me. And instead of, 17-year-old Houston or 18-year-old Houston, beating their face in, I took that as motivation to go and do something better. And I actually, once I started my new job with my first paycheck, after I paid what I absolutely had to, I walked in there and bought 2 of the biggest steaks they had just to be like, and I walked right back out. Nice. But, it's one of those things. And ironically, the very next day after my final day at this place, the owner had a massive stroke and ended up in the ICU.
Wow.
So it was almost like I was foretold that I needed to get the hell out of here because something bad's fixing to happen. And he's still not back at work.
Yep. So you definitely took the initiative just in time and made something else happen for yourself. And I love that. I mean, I'm very grateful that I've been able to be here to help you through all of this. I mean, he's definitely, he's like our brother. Like, we've literally adopted him.
Pretty much.
And, what he was, back to what he was saying before about, being on all these drugs and things like that. There were days where he showed up to work late. There were some days he didn't come in at all. And, I've never done drugs. I've never been through anything like that, but I have been in some extremely low places in my life where I needed somebody to just be there for me. And I recognized that with you. There were times where I had him stay at the house
Yeah.
for like 3 days.
Yeah, that was
And because literally nobody,
interesting.
his family had pretty much abandoned him. They didn't want him around, or he didn't want to be around them. There was nowhere else for him to go. So I was like, all right, well, get your stuff. You're coming home with me, and you can stay with me for a little bit until you get some things sorted out.
I had that car that bottomed out everywhere and blew up on me and
Oh my
overheated, and yeah.
He went through like 2 or 3 vehicles through the course of what was it, 2 years?
I went
that you
through
were with
6
me?
vehicles in 364 days.
Was it 6?
Yes.
That's right.
The
Yeah,
four,
it was.
both the or 3 Rangers, the S10.
I forgot
Let's
about
see,
the S10.
the white S10.
And there was the Civic.
Yeah, then there was a Civic. I had the little
black
black car in between, and then I bought the Toyota, and it lasted me a year and a half, and then it blew up. So there
Yeah.
were 7 in 2 years.
Yeah, so this dude was going through it. Like, he was going through it personally as far as family and friends and relationships go. He was going through it financially. He was going through just all this stuff. And
It was a lot.
yeah, and it really is a testament to him, because the same water that hardens the egg softens the potato. Everybody's gonna go through things, but it's what you're made out of. And I don't take any credit for how he's turned out. I definitely helped. Me and John definitely helped him, but it's because that he has been using these exact principles that we've been discussing here and driving through and learning and growing and not settling for less, not willing to be regular, that he's succeeding in life. Like, tell us about your job now as compared to where you used to be.
So as of now, I am kind of sort of in the situation where I'm in the similar position as Joe at the second largest paper packaging company in the world. I have about 4 or 5 other employees that, there's me and another gentleman that we bounce ideas off of each other, who's going to work better in what position and things like that. We print a lot of paper for almost anything you could think of. We've probably printed for it. Anything from Swiffers and pull-up diapers to Jack Daniels and beer that gets shipped out to Mexico. We print for everything you could think of. And I started out, and I'm not very far in the company yet either. I mean, I've been there almost 6 months. But I started out working for, and this is the truth, I don't even think I've ever told you this, but when I originally started there and I went to nighttime, there was a gentleman on nighttime, and I, honest to God, thought he was going to break me. Mentally, I thought he was going to break me. It got to the point where I know it's funny, but shouldn't have been said in the workplace. I had a real bushy beard back then, and he told me I looked like I needed to stay 100 feet away from every school. And I told him that if that's how he felt, and I had to deal with the face that he has, I would go make friends with the new bridge on 52 and jump. And I'm not joking. I thought he was literally going to mentally break me. And after it was all said and done, he still comes in and he still does what he does, and he is who he is. He's back on daytime now. But the biggest thing that I've learned from it is I have a supervisor, and that's the person that I go to when I have issues is my supervisor. And anytime I come in and he comes in after us and he starts on stuff, I'm like, I didn't know you were Jerry. I didn't know you were my supervisor. When did you get bumped up? Because if you're not my supervisor, your words don't mean anything to me. And he absolutely hates that. And he's an older guy, so he's got the older mentality of, we are supposed to get shitted on while he shits on us. And I don't think that's how that works. If we're all in the same position and we all have the same title of job, just like the people who work with me on my shift, I don't look at them, I don't tell them what to do. If I think that we can benefit from, you being here instead of you being there, I would suggest it, but I don't care what you do. Well, I'm here to make money. I'm here for 12 hours. I'm here to do a job that I'm getting paid for, and nothing more, nothing less. That's what we're here for. And that's just how I look at it.
So pretty much now you have moved from, in 6 months, you've came from a place where you were the absolute low man on the totem pole to where you're at now, which is
I'm the highest man in finishing.
You've moved up pretty much all the way up the ladder in that particular area in just 6 months, and all this from a kid who couldn't be trusted to show up on time, couldn't be trusted to stay on task, would come in high, would
get in trouble for wearing earbuds,
get in trouble for doing something he knew he shouldn't. He went from all this to somebody who shows up 2.5 hours early, who is leading other people, who is responsible, who is a self-starter, takes accountability, and who not only knows how to handle himself, but also how to properly respond when stupid people start to interact with him.
Right.
So that's a ridiculous amount of growth.
And on a kind of a catch-22 note, something that I learned when I was working with you, not mentally, but you remember the lift I had to run that it twisted, and I had never ran one of those. So that I use every day now because of the lift that I have to use to pick up the paper up top is a twisted lift. And I had never run one of those before until I started working for you. So, and I literally use that every day.
Nice.
So
it's amazing how you just carry even the littlest of things over with you, and how it continues to benefit you later down the road.
Well, you have to be able to do that. If you can't sit back and look at your own problems in a situation and your own faults, then who are you? Like, that just makes you just as bad as the person who's done you wrong.
You have to be able to self-reflect and self-assess. And that's something that I've noticed recently a lot of people struggle to do, because it's hard to look at yourself as the bad guy and say, okay, I was wrong in this. I didn't do this as good as I could have. What should I have done differently, and how could that have affected better the outcome of what I'm trying to achieve?
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to get really honest with yourself. And I mean, it's true, you are your own worst critic, but a lot of people don't want to even get to that point of brutal self-honesty and just looking inwards for a minute and realizing what their problem is.
A lot of people are more narcissistic these days, so a lot of that, your own worst critic and self-reflection and stuff, a lot of that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, I will for 100% tell you, for I don't know how long it's been, for at least the last 3 or 4 months, I have been my biggest critic, not even just mentally. Like, we'll be at work and there'll be something that I can't do, and the people have called it like self-defamation, or I don't know if that's the right word, but where I down myself. And I think it's part of my upbringing coming out of me, but I'm really bad on myself, even just in my own head. Like, if I couldn't fit between 2 roles because of my role, I'll be like, man, I'm such a fat ass. I can't even fit through there, but y'all can't. You know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, so now Houston's a big dude. Yeah, and you've been big ever since I've known you. Mm-hmm. But not only is he growing and pushing through and forward in his professional life, his career, tell us a little bit about what you're doing for yourself physically.
So me and my fiance went on a tangent about a month and a half, 2 months ago, where we quit drinking complete soda. The only soda product that I drink is I drink a Monster every night before I go to work, because I work nighttime and it's hard to keep myself awake. Yeah. Other than that, we drink a little bit of sparkling water here and there, or I drink a lot of water. I've stopped drinking milk because Joe knows how I was with the freaking chocolate milk. Yeah. And I ate a lot more protein and a lot less carbs. I don't eat as much bread. Like if I was to go to somewhere and get something to eat, most time I skip out on the bread, whether it be a bun on a hamburger or a bun for a hot dog, or I get grilled chicken instead of breaded chicken. And so it's not a lot of major changes, but the major change that I've done is I really only eat 1 big meal a day, and then I fast for the rest of the day. And trust me, as a big man, it is really hard to start doing that, because you're so used to, I'm bored, I'm going to go eat something, or I'm watching TV. Well, I got to have popcorn, so let's eat some popcorn. And then you get popcorn and you're like, oh, well, let's put some M&Ms in it, because why not? It seems like it's so minuscule at first because it's just like, well, I'm just going to have this one time. I'm just going to do this one time. I'm just going to have this one soda, or I'm just going to, and it just keeps piling up before you realize that you're 450 pounds.
Yep, that's a lot. And that's hard to stick to.
It really
It
is.
definitely is. And look, you guys, this right here, this is a man. This is what a man looks like. He's improving himself. He's making himself better in every single aspect of his life. And like me and John just could not be more proud of you. Like,
Now, granted, you know, I'm sitting over here and I sound like a really good, and I feel like I am a really good man, but we all three still see things in completely different ways. Like, John is always, to me, seems more strict and more one way, and I don't mean this in no way, but one-sided, and what you feel is right is what you feel is right. You know, you don't smoke cigarettes. You don't. I mean, you drink some, but I don't even know if you drink much anymore now.
Just
but
a little bit.
you know, that's you. That's what you do, and that's your personality. Whereas Joe, and not to put you out there, but I can't tell you how many times I would get a new vape to come to work, or I would get a pack of cigarettes, or I would get, you know, something of that nature, and I'd be like, "Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe," and Joe would hit it. So he's just more. He's not as hard. If that makes sense. You don't have as hard of an exterior. And I'm just here. I'm just kind of floating. Like, I can be either way. You can ask my fiance. I can be either way. And I can sit here and honestly tell you that I have not gotten extremely aggressive towards another human other than once in the last 2 years that I've been with my fiance. Well, no, I can't say that. Like 3 or 4 times. But, you know, the one time that it ended very badly for an individual and 2.5 years of being with my fiance. So I've also grown in that aspect of, I don't feel like I need to prove anything.
yeah,
I just don't.
You went from the point where you were always feeling like you had to fight, like, because he's not joking. He would come in Monday morning and his knuckles. He would have a new.
I tried to fight him.
A new fight
you see
story.
him? I tried to fight him. There were many times we would fight, and I would always lose. But damn it, I kept trying.
He didn't give up. He didn't quit. And it's like. As far as like the cigarettes and the vapes and stuff go, to a certain point, I'll partake a little bit just because it's a way for me to connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was a way that I connected with you.
Right.
It was something that we then had in common. It was a way that I could kind of, you know.
Yeah,
make
and
that connection.
it can be part of it.
So everything that I do, I did for a good reason. A lot of people don't realize it. Because, you know, they would probably hear you say that and be like, oh, you know, whatever, he doesn't stick to his guns, or he's wishy-washy or whatever. But everything that I do is with intent.
It's called being tactical.
It's being tactical, yes.
Well, in a lot of things, and I know that anybody, if there is anybody who's watching this who has ever worked with you, and it has ever been for shorter than 6 months to a year, you won't truly understand where I'm coming through when I tell you this. But Joe is a genuinely good boss, and so is John. Because, granted, if you were there for, like I said, if you were there for less than 3 months, you wouldn't have seen when Joe brought in natural or non-alcoholic beer and pizza for people. You wouldn't have been there for, and dude, that was the funniest thing ever, trying to watch him shotgun for the first time. That was so funny.
It was terrible. Shotgunning beer is not for me.
I'm pretty good at it, but or every Friday somebody would bring in cigars, whether it be Joe or me, and on lunch we would smoke a cigar together. That was what we would all do. Or, you know, the music that he would play. Yeah, a lot of it's out there, but, you know, he would still, you know, there were times where I would get to play something, or he would get to play something, or then we had Country Girl Fridays. Those were interesting. But at that
Play all
time,
the girly stuff on Friday.
like Shania Twain and stuff.
Oh, I know. I heard you were singing along.
You have no idea. I have told everybody this my whole life. If there's any time that you ever want to see Houston become a little bit feminine, put on Shania Twain, because that just does it for me, man. I'm telling you.
Well, I'll kick a door off its hinges when she says, "Let's go, girls."
Oh my God, dude, it was so bad. He got a video of me spinning around with my legs kicking up in the air.
I still have that video. Actually, I still have that video.
But we really did have a great crew then too, but with me and Drew and Christian and Mason and who else was it? With me, you, Drew, Christian.
That was it.
Mason.
That was the one crew.
Yeah, it was. we all got along really well, and we all kind of had everybody had their own issues and problems, but we were all there to work. And I hung out with several of the different ones throughout the time we worked there, from smashing someone's ex-wife's TV in with my foot, to driving and not knowing where we were going to end up because I thought we were going to go through a cornfield, to all kinds of crazy stuff.
Awesome. But it was all good.
It really
wholesome,
was. Yeah.
Wholesome fun. It wasn't anything stupid, nothing anyone's going to go to jail over.
Mm-mm.
And that's something that I'm glad I've been able to implement there, because I realize that people are going through things, you know what I mean? And I want to create an environment where people can come and just, they know that they can work. They're not gonna be treated like garbage.
No,
and where they're free to
Only at first.
unless
it
they
has
deserve
a
it.
purpose,
Unless
yeah.
they deserve it, because there was a few.
There was a few that they earned it.
There was one kid, that poor kid, Dungeons and Dragons, man. I swear to God.
Oh man, the way he was eating that ranch.
He was
it
taking
scared
a
me.
ranch cup. So they had gotten us. I about said the name. The place we worked at had gotten everybody lunch, and he was one of the new hires. He was there 3 days. That was it, 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And he picked up a ranch cup and was looking at a concrete wall like this, and was just.
He was literally eating the cup of ranch
Just
like you would
staring
an
at a
ice cream
column.
cone.
And he would say stuff like this right here, and you would be like, "What'd you say?" And he'd be like, "Nothing, nothing. I didn't say nothing." And you could clearly tell he was talking crap about me and Joe every time he would do it. Well, Joe put him on the front side, and Joe took off, quite literally running with this 300-pound sheet of metal, and this little dude's trying to hobble like this with his pants up, and it was just the best thing I could compare it to is Rumpelstiltskin trying to run a mile. I mean, I swear to God, that's what it looked like. But he slammed my hand under one of those sheets, and I damn near beat his face in. Like, I was going to hurt him. Like, if Joe hadn't got off the forklift, I would have killed him.
Yeah,
it was bad.
That kid was trouble. But you had some good friends there, Garrett. And...
Yeah, we don't talk about him.
Yeah, so we really had some good times.
Garrett wanted to kill me so bad.
You wanted to kill Garrett so bad.
I tried to make him my protege, but it didn't work.
you it was a good attempt. You made an effort.
I tried.
Because he definitely did need help. And
yeah.
I noticed, because that was another kid that had a really rough upbringing, didn't have a father in his life, and I noticed that whenever certain situations would occur, that he would be like, "Oh, you don't think I can do that, can you?" Or "You don't think I could get that, can you?" I was like, "No, I think you can, but there are some things that you have to adjust first." And he was another one that would always be showing up late.
That poor kid was dumb.
Dude, he was having these issues.
He had a 1995 Nissan Maxima. It was white with some spray painted rims on it, right?
I think he thought it was black.
And it had 550,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And he had never done an oil change.
Yeah.
And it literally blew up on him on the way to work one day. Like, I rode with him to go get lunch one day because I didn't want to drive my car because, I was trying to save gas. I lived 45 minutes away one way. And when he would accelerate, you could feel the engine shift forward and shift backwards when he would let off the throttle. I was like, dude, I don't want to ride in here. This is scary.
The one thing I noticed about him was that I realized that he didn't have that male figurehead in his life, so I started giving him a hug every morning when he would come in, and he started showing up on time every day.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to get his hug.
He needed that like we were talking about before, how every boy wants to look up to a man and learn from him and have that mentorship and that role model. And I think that's something that I've been able to recognize in young men over the years and help with that, because as soon as I started being there like that for him, his work ethic improved. He started, his paying attention and listening to what I was telling him was better. He was showing up on time. He started to improve.
Well,
go
no, you go ahead.
What I was going to say about that is, in a leader, it's interesting because what may be good for one young man in that position might not be what another one needs. Like, you weren't giving Houston hugs. You were being hard on him because you, as a leader, recognized what he needed and applied it. And then, look at the result now. He's doing great. But he might have needed a more softer approach. But
Yeah.
we're still, you could contrast that and come down on them when necessary. But
You have to consider the individual.
It's equal
because
to-
everybody's
yeah.
needs are different. You can't just blanketly treat everybody the same across
Yep.
the board. You've got to adjust for different people.
That's what true leadership is being able to recognize how to approach and still get the same result. Which
Well,
is
one of the biggest things in my life, and I know Joe will understand how big this situation is, but I have always looked for approval from two different people in my family and in my life. One of them is my dad. Again, Joe knows a lot of the situations. We didn't have the greatest of relationship. And my grandfather, who was in the Marines. And about a year and a half ago, my dad told me that he was proud of me for the first time in 24 years of life. And it really caught me because at the time, I had been fighting so hard to get this man to say those words. And when he said it, it was just like, okay, like I'm glad, but okay, what's that supposed to mean? You know what I mean? It's like I fought for something so hard, and then it's just like, whatever.
You reach a point where you still appreciate it. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely, but it was just like
earth shattering.
Yeah, it didn't mean what I thought it would mean. Like I was already proud of myself where I'm at. That it was just another achievement, I guess you could say. But I will truly tell you, when my grandpa, so he's going through a lot right now. A lot of bad things are happening. But he told me he was proud of me about 2 weeks ago, and I almost started crying, like genuinely. And I know people say that real men don't cry. That's a load of shit. Cause any real man, when he gets by himself and he's fighting the demons that we all go through in their head, you're gonna cry. I mean, it is what it is. You may sit here and not admit to it. You may think, no, I'm too macho. And that's fine, but we all, as men, we all have the understanding that every man cries at some point. And to hear somebody who has genuinely been so hard on me throughout life, even harder than my dad, it meant a lot. It really does. And I will tell people, don't go searching for that, because it'll find you when you're ready for it. When you're not looking for things like my fiance, you can ask this man here.
Yep.
Me and my ex-girlfriend had just broke up. I was gonna go on a hoe tangent, and
He was gonna start hoeing.
this was the first girl that I met with. I've known this girl since I was 8 years old. I went to Bible school with this girl back in the day. Her uncle was my preacher growing up. I went to school with her and her sisters. Like, I've known her my whole life. And it just literally hit me out of nowhere. I had no idea that this was going to be somebody I would spend the rest of my life with.
It just kind of clicked.
It really did.
I remember that. It was funny because he was like, Joe, don't let me get locked down with the first girl I go out with.
It
And
happened.
I was like, okay, like I'm gonna hold you to it. So I actually did kind of try. I was like, what are you doing? No.
She was just different. And, we have our problems. I mean, every relationship does. But to be able to know that, granted, she might give me shit for it later, and just like I would too. But, I went through a time when I left this company we worked for, and I went into a spiral. I couldn't keep a job. The job that I did end up keeping for almost a year was a very, very bad job, which I will say I met another very good lifelong friend at. But it was a flagging situation, and it was so stupid. And we would go out there, and you would stand in this 12 by 12 square for 8 to 15 hours a day, and it was just stupid. And I don't know. It just when I quit and I went to a different place, and then they started cutting my hours, and then I lost my job and I didn't have a job. She picked up the slack, and she started working 7 days a week. And she didn't ever hold that against me. She never once, said that, you're the man, you need to go do this and you need to go do that, because she knew I was trying just as hard as she would have ever said to find something different. But I didn't want to find something different that I couldn't stay at, because I needed to be able to support her and myself. It wasn't just me anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now we've got them two little furry shitheads. But
things have looked up. You guys got your own place. You got a decent vehicle. You got
been there 2 years now.
You got 2 pups. Like you guys are doing good, and that's awesome to see. I'm so proud of the both of you. Really,
it's awesome and motivating too for anyone that might be watching this that is in Houston's shoes, maybe like previously before he really grew and developed. So what would you tell somebody that, or even what would you tell your previous self?
What would you tell 18-year-old Houston?
So if have not knowing you like I do, of course, and that would have been the time frame when I started there. It's okay to sow bad seeds now and to get what you got to get out at a young age, when you don't have responsibilities. But if you can sit there and you got one person that comes to mind that's being really, really hard on you, or is just trying to feel like they're trying to tear you down, instead of thinking they're after you, sit back and look at what they're teaching you, what they're trying to get you to understand. There's a very big misconception in my generation and even the generation after that, we all want to be equal, and, that bullying is bad, and, but that to me doesn't make sense, because you have to have a balance. Like there has to be some evil in the world so that when you get to experience the good things, you hold on to them and cherish them more. And if you need help with trying to get off of drugs, or trying to quit drinking, or trying to quit partying, or things like that, you need to take the energy that you're putting into that and put it to do better for yourself. Because if I could have the money, the energy, and the time back that I spent doing those 3 things, I would be so many more leaps and bounds ahead of where I'm at today. Because I figured it up one time, and it was $180,000 that I put up my nose in a year and a half. 180 grand.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I can't breathe out of this nostril. I messed up my sinus cavity. I would go and work with him and go into Porta-John 5 or 6 times a day. I know you noticed. And I'd be in there and go back to work.
Yep.
I swear to you, I would. I had to, like every couple hours, because I would start to hit bottom again. He would see it. I would be falling asleep sitting in the chair, or I would get very irritable or whatever, and I'd go in the bathroom, and come right back out, and I'd be all ready to go. It was bad, dude. It was really, really bad. But
and I mean, so many people, looked at me during that time period and like, well, like, you're bullying that kid, and I was like, yeah, I am. And even this morning, I was telling my girl, she was like, don't, I'm gonna listen to this episode and see how you were mean to him. And I was like,
I don't know if you're prepared for it.
I was like, listen, I was mean to him, but I was mean to him for a very good reason. I was ripping down and tearing down everything that was Houston at that point that needed to come out, that wasn't beneficial for him. And I was helping him to put those pieces back together, rebuild himself into somebody that he wanted to be, and somebody that he could be proud of, somebody that would succeed in life.
Because there's a lot of stories that will happen between us that we really just can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't need to be out in the public. But
because I was, oh man,
it was so bad. But I even noticed it starting to change when I worked at that place, because I remember one of the weekends after I'd gotten hired on, which, by the way, was one of the hardest things that I've ever done, is trying to get hired on at said place, because they gave me the runaround all the time. I was there almost 9 months as a temp before they even thought about hiring me on. And then they wouldn't give me a raise after 2 years of being there. They wouldn't give me nothing. But I remember, so the welder, the first welder, the A welder, I strung up D31, an entire 32 can field by myself. No one helped me. No one spun cans. No one did anything.
That's hard. That's
because everybody was on lunch, and Will stopped me and asked me to string it up. I strung up 32 wires of D31 by myself.
Yep.
And I was fighting God, I'm gonna tell you. I was fighting God.
There were days that I walked by, and there was this one machine that he was on, the bundler. He was walked by, he was ready to fight everyone.
Dude, it come up, right, and it would wrap wire together, like bundles of wire, and it would come up and wrap this little tie, and it would slide down, and you'd have to try to position it to where the rest of it was, and then it would tip over and dump. Well, if it wasn't tipping over and busting the wires, and then me having to go pick it up and hand tie it, it was coming through the bundler, and the bundler was just like, huh, and watching the wire go all the way down and just spread out all over the table. So then I'd have to take 500 pieces of wire and pull them up and put them in a bundle and wrap them. Dude, I wanted to blow that machine up. I swear to God I did. I hated that thing so much.
And then there were times where he actually ended up back outside with me on my crew, and he was wanting to run the machine, and
Yep.
I purposely gave it to somebody else because at the time he didn't deserve it. And he was so mad. He came out and grabbed his stuff. He walked back inside.
I went and told them I quit.
Yeah.
Like I told them that I quit, and they wouldn't let me.
It's like I'm screwed
And
either way.
that to me told me enough there that even though they didn't value me enough to give me a raise, they still valued my work ethic because, you know, again, I had started and I wasn't worth a pint of piss and two black cats. But, you know, as I progressed, I worked 3 months, almost 18 hours a day covering for third shift and still working my regular hours. And then I would go sleep in my car out in the parking lot and come back in, and our locker room had showers. I would shower in the showers and go back to work at 3 a.m. I'd get off at 7 and go back to work at 3 a.m. and work from 3 to 7 for 3 months straight, 7 days a week.
Yeah, he was hustling.
That's what it takes sometimes. So that's what a lot of people don't realize when you can get from one place to another. And if it's worth anything, you've almost always had to have sacrificed something for that. Nothing ever comes for free. That's worthwhile.
People don't see that or talk about that enough. It takes a lot of grit, and
Yep.
it's just.
I remember when I was in a similar position, just starting out for a certain company when I was about 19. I worked a couple of years as a temp guy, just doing general labor, and I had gotten a position, an opportunity to get promoted to a manager and become a salary employee. And when they first gave me that, I was putting like 12 to 14 hours a day during the week, and I would come in on Saturday, half day, and even sometimes if something special needed to be done, I'd be there a couple hours Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that if I stuck it out and did that and kind of built everything up to where I could manage it easily and kind of be like a rock star employee, that it was going to pay off. So once you get promoted, all the employees there that are just working, you know, their 8-hour shift Monday through Friday and going home, they don't see what you're putting in behind the scenes to be able to do what you do. And then some of them become jealous, and you know, they don't respect you as much. They think that you just got lucky and have had it easy, or the cards are against them, but they're really not seeing the big picture and what all you're really pouring in to your position and your future, and really ultimately yourself.
Well, and Joe, when I worked with him, you know, I started out outside and I got pulled in like I was going to get hired, but then it was like, 4 months and they still hadn't hired me. I had worked on every single machine in the building. I could halfway do all of the offload on every machine, whether it was stacking the sheets up, it was tying rolls in, it was running the bundler, it was, you know, taking and turning the table and running sheets out the door, to running a small straight cut by myself, to, you know, babysitting a draw machine. I could do half-ass of everything in there. And that was one of the reasons why I quit, because, you know, I'd been there for, what was it, like 3.5 years almost? It was damn near it. And I had put in so much time and I had tried so hard. And this is what I think is wrong with, what's the word? Capital America, is that right? I may be
Corporate
saying,
America.
Yeah, corporate America is, you know, they would rather just hire somebody else off the street than they would to, you know, give gratification back to the employees
You're
they
just
already
a number.
have. Yeah, you're just, and that's not how it should be.
No.
I mean, like I said, I did all that and they gave me a penny. Remember?
I remember that, yeah.
They gave me a penny. And when I quit, I walked in there with a pack of that 35-cent double bubble gum and I laid it on someone's desk. I about said her name. And I said, "This is what your raise bought me. I hope you know today's my last day." And I walked out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that was my last day at Instill.
Yep.
Crap, you're gonna have to snip that out. My bad.
No, we won't. We're not.
Who cares?
We're not snipping nothing out. Hey, sometimes it just things happen for a reason, and obviously you were not meant to be at that company. It was just meant to be a stepping stone for you, because the way things have turned out for you now, in retrospect, you can see why all that happened the way it did.
Yeah.
Because you never would be where you're at had you not.
And I use all that grinding and shit now because, there's these little opportunities that open up where I'm at now. So they give out annual raises. We don't get like what y'all do. We don't get,
don't get to pay
incentive
for
raises or whatever. We get raises every year, and a lot of people were not happy with the raise they got this year, which is, that's whatever. I don't even, it's more money that I didn't have that I have now. But I have taken almost literally every opportunity. So there's this talk about throughout the company where we might be getting a system like that plus our annual raise.
Sweet.
And I've already got my feet plumb running in motion. I've learned to do like 4 different things that are not part of my job that I can do that nobody else can do. Like running the clamp truck, I can hang rolls. I know how to pull rolls. I know how to unload trucks. I know how to do, I know how to look for inks and check like ink dyes, and nobody else knows how to do that. Everybody on our shift will ask me, "Hey, you coming in to work overtime, or what are you coming in and work doing tomorrow or whatever?" And I'm like, just working. Because, granted, my best friend forever works with me, and he knows what my plan is and where I intend to see myself, but he don't know what's going on behind closed doors either. He's got his own little devices that I don't know and I don't have, and that's what makes us a good duo. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, I'm always wanting more. I guess because I've always been an underdog, I don't want to be an underdog no more.
Yeah.
If I am an underdog, I want to be like, yeah, well, here's my credentials.
The wolf climbing the hill is,
You got the taste of victory.
is more hungry than the one
Now
on
we're-
top of the mountain. That's good.
Absolutely.
You should always strive to do better, and I think as soon as someone becomes complacent and they're happy where they are, they actually start to go backwards in some way or another. Because yes, maybe you can maintain something like a physical physique, but I think the true warriors and leaders and people that are on top are the ones that are never satisfied. They like the journey more than the destination.
Right.
And if you can fall in love with the journey, then you'll always be ahead of everyone else.
And for anybody who tells you not to be boastful or not to be proud of what you've earned and what you've got, I agree, don't be like, but, if you're proud of something, be proud of it, man.
Yeah.
Like, own it. If, I got a promotion sort of at my job, and I went out and celebrated it. I went and bought a $150 bottle of whiskey, which I shouldn't have done, what I've sipped on for like 3 months, but because, why not?
Hey, you earned it.
Yeah.
And you should. I agree. You definitely should never rub things in people's faces, but you should be very proud of everything that you achieve.
Exactly.
100%. Nothing wrong with that.
Really, and it's not like you're in a competition with anyone.
No.
So there's nothing to prove to anyone else but yourself. So
Exactly.
when you achieve something within yourself, there's nothing wrong with going to splurge. I actually do the same thing. Anytime I get a big bonus or commission check, I'll go buy something.
I know. I'll be seeing it on Facebook. I know you and your suits and your bottle and your glass of whiskey and your cigar. I know. I'll be seeing.
Yeah, you have to enjoy the thing, and everyone has their own way as long as it's healthy, and there's nothing that's gonna really tear you down from what you're doing. You're not going and blowing it on 180 grand worth of cocaine. There's nothing wrong. I think it's almost better to do that because you've gone through a lot. You've reached a small stopping point. And when I'm able to do something like that, it just makes me hungrier. Like, man,
Yeah.
I was able to spend this on that because I put in the work. Now I want to work even harder and get
So
to
I
the
can do
next
that
stuff
more.
and keep going. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just you're just staying hungry. It's like you eat a meal, and it's not a big meal, so it's not like you're way down and full, but just enough to power you up. And then guess what? That metabolism is going again, and you're even more hungry.
Yeah.
You want more and more. It's like an appetizer.
Yep, the fat's burning. You're feeling good now. You got the energy.
You're like, let's go.
You sit
Like,
there
I'm
and
ready.
burn through the next couple hours, and then you get the next little meal.
Yep. And you just keep going. That's that hunger that keeps driving people. You never eat just one meal and that's it. That's what
Right.
destination happiness is, and it technically doesn't exist because you're always going to be left wanting more. It's like, well, now what? Now I'm here. Now what? Now what?
Well, and I will say that I think my biggest drive has been, I started when I became an adult, and I moved out on my own. I didn't have anything. I mean, I know you remember me telling you, like, when I moved out with some people, and it didn't go very well. And I won't go into detail because I don't want to ruin nobody's image, but it was really screwed up. And then I moved another place, and it got messed up. And I went through almost like $5,000 in less than 3 weeks, like just trying to, putting in first and last months, trying to keep a place, and then finding out, oh, you didn't get approved for it because you don't have any credit, or living with somebody and them taking every dollar I had, and me not knowing what's going on. I had a $249 mattress from Walmart. I had a 5-pack of ramen, and a phone charger. That's all I had. That's all me and Ashlyn had when we moved into where we're at now. And now we've got couches and TVs, and we invite people over for dinners, and we go out and eat with a friend's couple that we have, and we always pick up the tab because we can do that. I'm not nowhere near where I can go and, drop $40,000 on another car, or, go and buy a $150 pair of jeans, because I just can't fucking do that. But
It's kind of gay anyway.
yeah, just a wee bit. I'm not trying to be a rhinestone cowboy over here or anything,
I
but
buy all my jeans at Walmart.
I do too, because they're gonna get ripped up and tore up and stained and whatever. But that's my motivation, is I'm always gonna want to be better for her, not just myself, but for her.
That's awesome. That's truly traditional masculinity, because you're taking ownership for not only yourself but for her too, and you're being a responsible man.
I know you remember, because I would take off Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock just so she could go back to school. And then I would work like hell Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Come on, boy, it's time to clock in.
Yeah, you be like, you left early yesterday. You got more in the tank than anybody else. I'm like, damn it.
But he always would, though. He would come in earlier on the days that he was there. He worked the same amount of hours as if he wasn't there, but I worked with him because I saw what he was trying to do for their future, and the same amount of work gets done. I don't see the reason to be super, super rigid unless it's something that requires him to actually be there from a certain time to a certain time. If you can get it done within the week and it's what the company needs, and we're not going to miss any time that you're not there, go for it.
I think when I gained the most respect, because again, when I started working with you, I knew you, but I didn't know you, I think when I feel like we both gained mutual respect for each other was when I started out and I was doing the molds, and I came to you and told you, as a man, I don't think this is the right situation or position for me.
Yep.
I'll stay here as long as you need me to, but in order for you to benefit and me to benefit, I don't think this is the right spot. And we worked on it. I think I gained a lot of respect for you because you were willing to work with me on it, instead of just being like, no, that's what you signed up for.
Yep.
And that meant a lot to be able to do something like that. Or when I came to you and told you, hey, can I leave early on these 2 days every week? I will do what I need to make up the hours. I'm just trying to look forward to my future. And you were willing to work with me, and you didn't have any problems with anything like that happened. It meant a lot.
Absolutely. That's, what boils back down to when you are doing all the right things and you're putting all the effort in correctly on your end, things seem to line up. It might not be right away, but things seem to line up in such a way to allow you to be able to do that. It's like everything is just pointing to give you a chance because you're internally doing everything right on your end. It might not be right away, like I said, and you might have to push through, like what me and Joe preach about a lot, but eventually everything's going to line up if you continue on that way. So that's cool to know that it paid off for you.
Yeah, just don't ever give up. That's my biggest.
Yep.
That's the motto I live by. Don't ever give up. And what you don't have today, you can succeed in tomorrow.
That's really good.
Awesome. Like that.
Well, I think that about wraps us up. What do you think?
Yeah, Houston, thanks for being our guest on here, buddy.
Yeah,
It's
man,
been
absolutely.
a pleasure.
It's been awesome
We'll have
having
to
you.
do it again for sure.
For sure. It was good. Anything, any final remarks or anything else you wanted to cover that you forgot
As
about?
soon as the camera goes off, we're gonna beat the shit out of you.
I already know what's fixing to happen.
It's time to toughen
That's
up.
why I'm here.
Time to get to the next level.
I'm
Boss
harden up,
level.
boy.
Going to the boss level now, aren't we?
That's right.
No, just like I said, just always try to find the light in everything. Don't always look into the darkness, and just be the best human you can be, and be a fucking man.
There you go. Well, guys, that's it for today. You guys will catch us next time. Stay dangerous.